It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K.
Hello and welcome to Onyx News. I'm your host, Margie K, right here on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network. In case you didn't know, we are on all digital radio platforms, including Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Paranormal Talk Radio, and all of the others, and of course, YouTube. So we are live on YouTube right now. If you'd like to join us over there, then you can join the chat and place your comments in the chat or your questions for our guest tonight. We do have several things coming up here with the UNX Network. If you want to go to www.unxnetwork.com, you will see everything we have to offer there, including a free membership or a paid membership, and you can get the newsletter, the magazine, digital magazine copy, and don't forget about XCon coming up in October. We do have our super early bird tickets available now, and this is the cheapest they're going to be throughout the year. And of course, XCon is October 11th through the 13th. So mark your calendar. And then also, if you would, please on YouTube, like and subscribe so that you don't miss a show right here on the network. You know, we have over 560 shows on the UNX Network right now, just on YouTube. So if you have, if you're wanting some entertainment and some education and information about all things unexplained, just go to the channel and start binge watching. You'll have a good time. I think you'll like the shows that we have. Tonight, my special guest is someone who has been here before. Constance Victoria Briggs is a metaphysical, spiritual, and cosmic researcher and writer. She's the author of the Encyclopedia of Angels, Encyclopedia of God, the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, and the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries. Her latest book is Earth's Galactic History and Its Extraterrestrial Connection, which is what we're going to be talking about this evening. She's been invited as a guest speaker on several radio shows discussing such topics as angels, ETs, ancient aliens, life after death communication, out-of-body experiences, moon mysteries, and more. It's Briggs' goal to investigate the mysteries of the universe and how they connect to humanity. Welcome to the program, Constance.
Thank you. Thank you, Margie, for having me back again.
Yes, it's good to see you again. I see you've been very, very busy. And so I'm going to ask you, what else do you do besides write books?
Oh, my goodness. Well, you know, most of my time these days, is involved in this, in the researching and the writing of these books. But when I'm not doing that, I've got two grown kids that, no matter how old they get, they still need you, and they're a couple hours away. So I'm, back and forth seeing them, and I live a regular life, and until it comes to this, it's like I have two lives. I've got the mainstream life and my UFO life.
Yes. Yes, don't we all?
Right?
Exactly. So speaking of UFO life, what got you interested in ETs especially?
So I started my my research and writing in, the metaphysical area, and I had a time in my life where I was actually, having some interesting paranormal experiences. In my apartment, I was living single and working, and there was some things going on. And I was trying to get rid of this invisible entity. And that led me to my research and writings on angels. And from angels, I learned that there are other benevolent beings in the universe. Besides angels, there are other benevolent beings, and I have star guides around me. I'm one of those people who I'm very I can sometimes get messages from them, and without going into a long drawn out story, one of the messages I was getting was that there are other people from other worlds. It's just leave it at that.
Uh-huh.
And because I felt like my guides throughout my life have been giving me bits and pieces of information, putting me on this spiritual journey,
Mhm.
and gradually increasing. And I've got memories of a time when I wasn't actually, that are memories that are not from this lifetime. And I would ask them about that. I remember being in a light, and I would close my eyes and I could see this light, and it was a good feeling. And I knew I had the guides. I learned that much, that there were angels and guardians and guides. And then they started giving me little bits of information. And I learned, I basically got the message that there were beings from elsewhere that were non-angelic, and just kind of following their path. I had a reading done. I asked if I was from elsewhere, from another world. The lady was saying, yes, you're from Sirius, you know, and you came here because there was a war and the soul had to go somewhere, and you came here. Now, I don't know if she was right. This was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, right?
Mhm.
I always felt like there was something else going on with me. I never quite fit in anywhere in the world and in the earth. So, long story short, to answer your question, along this path, I learned that there were benevolent beings out there, and I wanted to learn more about them. I wanted to find them. I wanted to understand who was out there and how they were related to Earth. So I go on this journey of looking for good extraterrestrials, is what it boils down to. And I started reading books from a woman named Phyllis Schlemmer, who was a channeler for beings in space. Gene Roddenberry was reportedly sitting in on her sessions. So she was talking about these good, benevolent beings. But of course, what's going to happen in the meantime when you're doing research and you're collecting stories and information? You're going to come across everyone else too, the good and the bad. So I learned
Yeah.
good, the bad, and the ugly, right? It's out.
Yes, indeed.
And as I'm doing all of this work, I'm collecting stories and information, and I'm excited, and I'm passionate. And I always wanted to write. I had written the angel book, a God book about God, and a book on life after death, basically, which is the unseen world book, I call it. But this led me to write about galactic mysteries and galactic history. And right now, I'm just caught up in that passion. So that's how it came to be. And that was longer than I meant for it to be, Margie, that answer.
Well, that's perfectly fine because sometimes you have to have a long answer to really understand what's going on. And, a lot of people have had similar experiences. Did you ever have a near death experience? I'm curious.
Yeah. So, I know a lot of people do experience things in near death experiences. And I'm one of them that I was 14 at the time. I was a bullied child. Middle school is a rough, rough ride, and a lot of
Mhm.
kids are bullied, and a lot of kids, even to this day, can't take it and try to commit suicide, which is what I did.
Oh.
Yeah, so I took a whole bunch of pills, and I ended up, almost to the end. In the meantime, while I was lying there just waiting for it to be over, I guess, it's a long time ago, I I saw what looked like a swirling cloud, and this thing was swirling, and then it opened, and dissipated, and there was a man standing there, and he had on he was attired in what looked like I want to say gown. From what I remember, it was just this long thing with a turtleneck, just like mine. It was white and had a turtleneck.
Hmm.
And he was holding his hand out to me, was beckoning me to come. Now, I didn't know anything at that time about angels and extraterrestrials and the unseen world at 14. I just didn't, I hadn't done any studying to that length. So I just thought, huh, wow, this is what happens when you take a whole bunch of a bunch of pills. And I know now that if I had reached out to him, I would have lifted up and out of the body and followed him. But he looked very upset and concerned. He knew me and he
Uh,
knew what was going on with me. And he came and he disappeared when someone came into the room that I was in. He disappeared. And so, I never considered him, even when I was studying and researching angels, I felt like he was someone different and someone else. And
mhm,
I can't explain why, but years later, this is where the story gets really strange. Um, I learned a lot about extraterrestrials, and there are pictures of some benevolent beings around that have channeled their pictures to people that they're trying to, reach on Earth. They're trying to help Earth and humanity, and they've given information and they've given channeling pictures. And I swear, one of these pictures looks just like the person I saw. And on the front of this channeled picture of this being is a swirling cloud.
whoa.
And he has a face and he has a high collar. Now,
Oh
what was
no.
different about the being that I saw is that the one in the picture had a helmet. This person was not wearing a helmet, but I swear they look so similar. Now, could that have
Mhm,
been the same person? Quite possibly, because where did I get the story about this being? Well, there was a book written, it was life changing for me, by Scott Mandelaker. He wrote a book called From Elsewhere. And that's why I use the word elsewhere so often when referring to
mhm,
extraterrestrial worlds. This book was a college thesis that he did where he studied people who believed that they were from other worlds and had come to Earth for a reason. And the woman in this book, this one story, her story matched mine in that she hadn't tried to kill herself, but she was sitting in her living room. And there was a swirling cloud that opened, and this person stood there. And that's where I learned that there is someone similar that kind of matched what I saw. Is it the person? I don't know, but I like to think so. I would love to be attached to
could
benevolent
be.
terrestrials out there trying
Mhm,
to help humanity. And according to my star guides, I feel like I am on a mission here, and I believe mine is to give out information, and I swear that when I'm writing, I feel like I get downloads, and I have books in a queue that are ideas that I believe are not my own. you know
mhm.
so yeah, it's been very, very interesting. That's my near death experience, and I don't think it was an angel. I think it was a benevolent ET being, and they're about, as you know, Margie, they're out there and they're
Oh
in
yeah.
community, and they are here to help, and they have ground troops here, people who are born in. Okay, no,
Mhm,
we don't know how they do it scientifically. It could be teleportation from getting, that extraterrestrial soul or whatever you want to call it into a human baby, a human body to be born. I believe there are ground troops that have come in that have exchanged places, which we refer to as walk-in. We have to
yeah.
name everything, right? So, for lack of a better term, I also believe there are ground troops that have come in here from ships in other worlds that are living among us
Mm,
and walking and living and trying to help. And some are even ethereal beings and invisible to us. I think there is a variety of extraterrestrials on Earth and around Earth at the moment. And you and I
mm.
could be two of them.
I completely concur with you on everything you just said. Um, because not only have I heard this many, many times from other experiencers, but I've had experiences myself. So I think you're 100% on board. I mean, I'm on board with that at all. Um, so you mentioned that you have these books on Q. So you obviously they're connected in some way. Do you get a telepathic message? How does that work when you are getting ready to get into a new project?
Yeah. So this latest one, and I'm going to keep the title and everything top secret for just a little bit longer, but it is extraterrestrial related, and it is telepathic. It was telepathic idea, and it's what they're asking is so much. It would be a really big book, Margie. I don't know if anyone will even publish it, but yeah, that that did
Well,
come
we
from
can talk.
the star, right? It came from the Star Guys. I'm like, you've got to be kidding! Do you know how big that's going to be? But yeah, in that one, I will say they would like me to do something on divine beings, which is in the queue. Um, let's see, another one in extraterrestrials, but mostly the information that I'm getting is info they want the public to have. Now, some of it has been said. A lot of stuff that we're doing is recycled and out there and reminders, and some of the stuff is new information.
Mhm.
So it looks like humanity, and I know you'll agree that we are being prepared for something. And that's why so many people have had to come in here from other places to do this work. Does everyone know that they're extraterrestrial working? No. Some people really are awake and some people are not, and some people are awakening, and some people are going about doing what they need to do. They're receiving information, but they don't know that they're even receiving it. You know, they think it's hard sometimes to tell your thoughts from the telepathic thoughts and from the downloads, unless you have that experience of interaction with star guides. So, yeah, basically it's to get information out to the masses, because there's going to be some time in the near future that we are going to be faced with the situation of understanding in a worldwide society in the whole globe that we're not alone in the universe, and it's information that everybody has to have, not because it's a kind of a nicety to know, okay? It's because they would like us to be a part of them. They've been wanting this from the beginning. They're waiting for humanity to grow up. They're waiting for us to get better, which it doesn't look like we are. And there have been extraterrestrials, and I write about this a little bit in my book, about the Andromedans have ambassador on Earth, and I've been following this man for many years, and he says that they said if humanity doesn't grow up, that, you know, they're going to have to maybe speed up the schedule of letting us know that they're out there, and also intervene, and there may be consequences, because we really are doing so much damage to the planet, and our behavior is having repercussions for throughout the galaxy. You know, when we do something here, it's not just affecting us, it's affecting others. But because we're not even aware of the others, you know, what are we going to do? What are we, you know, we don't even, not we, but, you know, those that are doing it. I mean, I say we, I mean humanity. You know, if you don't know they're out there, then you don't know you're harming. You know, they're trying to give us that space and time, but they may have to speed up that first contact schedule because of our behavior. So we need to get information about them out there to every corner of the world, that we're not alone in the universe, and that our behavior here is not just affecting us, but others out there, and that the authorities that be, I call them galactic hierarchies out there, are going to step in. Now, who knows what they're going to do? I don't mean that they're going to have a mass destruction on Earth of humanity, but, you know, we don't know what that means. So, you know, we need, and they're waiting. The other thing is this: the galactic community out there are made up of beings of, you know, that are hundreds and some thousands, millions, billions of years ahead. We are not the first beings to, as we, you know, have tended to think we're the center of the universe. We're not. Okay, we're not even, you know, high up on the rung. We're not even at a high level compared to people that are out there. So, you know, we need to have them in our lives, be aware of them, even have their help, and maybe perhaps borrow some of their advanced technology when it comes to things like cleaning up the earth, which is going to be hard to do. human disease and illness, uh, life expansion of the human body. The soul itself is something else, another story. We do leave these bodies and continue on. But, you know, I've heard that there are ETs here that are trying to upgrade the human body, and that gets into my book that talks about the relationship between humanity and extraterrestrials and where it begins, which I believe had to do with our creation.
Well, speaking of your book, Earth's Galactic History and Its Extraterrestrial Connection, can you give us an overview of what the book is about?
Yeah, so people have been asking me questions about extraterrestrials and UFOs. There's so much, Margie, going on in our skies. Everybody has a cell phone with a camera. So more and more pictures are coming out now
Yeah.
of UFOs, different kinds of UFOs all over the world, and some extraterrestrials and some strange creatures. So we're seeing a whole lot of stuff, and people have questions about extraterrestrials, mostly in UFOs, and that's where I wanted to start with this book. I wanted a book that people could go to that kind of touched on all aspects of our relationship with extraterrestrials. Of course, there's no way in the world I could put all the information in there, but it is kind of a history, kind of a storytelling of Earth's and humanity's history with extraterrestrials, UFOs, up till today. So I went into the first part, which is Earthrise, with my own hypothesis that Earth was terraformed and life was, placed here. And I'm not speaking of human life at the moment. I'm speaking of, other kinds of life. Originally, that was placed on Earth through some sort of technology that we don't understand. And then eventually, humanity was placed here. That's where I start the book with Earthrise. But the reason for the book was because of people's questions. And I thought if they looked at all the areas on Earth, which I tried to cover in my book by telling little stories, the oceans, the skies, the hollow Earth theory, and different ancient history, if they could look at that and see extraterrestrials have always been around, UFOs have always been seen in our skies. It's not a new thing, people. It didn't just start to happen. It was at the beginning of human history, since our writing, that we've been talking about visitations from the stars. Almost every culture, ancient culture around the world, talked about that. So I wanted people to have a primer to get started in their understanding and in their research. They can take this and jump off into other areas. Now they have kind of a guide to do so.
Well, that's fantastic, and I've got so many questions about that. Yeah, we're going to be up on a break in about a minute, but I do want to ask you one thing in particular. Were you shown, or in your research, did you find anything about the Earth's grid? Because this just recently came up for me.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know much about Earth's grid. I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
I'm still trying to understand that whole topic. So maybe you can tell me, Margie.
Well, I actually just had a contact last night with Val Thor, an ET I've been in contact with for quite some time, and he told me that the Earth's grid was put there millions of years ago. And so the reason that triggered me was when you said the Earth was terraformed, and I realized it was probably all done around the same time in order to create this grid that would protect it from sun flares that
Okay.
would then mostly bounce off of it. And yeah, I mean,
I've heard about it. I know about it. I just can't explain it. Maybe that's next on the list of things to teach me from my star guides, right?
well, just ask them. I'm sure they'll tell you too. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break here. I'll see everybody here in about 3 minutes. Unlock the mysteries of the spirit realm with the new book, Meeting Wallace. In this channeled work by renowned psychic medium Larry Costa, the reader will delve into the profound wisdom of his spirit guide, Wallace. Together, they share the transformative journey of harnessing psychic powers from the celestial plane. Discover the extraordinary psychic gifts that have empowered Larry on his path and immerse yourself in a thought-provoking and awe-inspiring read. Meeting Wallace is a groundbreaking endeavor, and it is a perspective seen through the eyes of a spirit guide. Discover the wisdom of the spirit realm alongside actual photographs of ghosts and spirit guides. Get the book Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa at Amazon.com. Debbie Ziegelmeyer. Debbie Ziegelmeyer is an experienced diver, dive trainer, and UFO investigator who has researched sites around the world that have water-related UFO activity. We now know that even the Pentagon admits that there are unknown objects in the skies and underwater around the world. Debbie compiled an amazing book to catalog many of these sightings. The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, a reference guide to UFO, USO, water-related activity, has received rave reviews by UFO researchers and the public. The book is available at Amazon.com. And we're back with the next news. I'm your host, Margie K, right here on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network. My guest this evening is Constance Victoria Briggs, and she is just a fascinating lady. You're going to love the rest of this show tonight. Constance, in your book, you talk about the possibility that there once was a battle for Earth. What do you mean by that?
So there are two things going on here. When you look at some of the information from our past, there are areas on Earth that looked as though there was a nuclear or atomic war, that,
Yes.
things that shouldn't be there, long before we ever, created the bomb, in our time. Um, and no, the scientists can't explain it. If you look at some of the ancient writings, like some of the Hindu writings or the Sanskrit writings, it talks about a war. It talks about the gods having a war. It talks about the gods having strange weaponry that was very powerful, and they were firing at someone. If you look at the moon has craters that are not normal moon craters from meteors hitting it. It looks like
Oh.
someone bombed there. And the same has been said about areas on Mars. So I wonder if the three planets, if the three worlds, because I believe that Mars once had people and still there's someone there. Don't know if it's the same beings. And also the moon, I believe, is inhabited, which is a whole other show, of course. But were they fighting each other, or was there a common foe out there that we were fighting? And also, Venus is thought to have been a thriving world at one point. And did a war interrupt the life there and make it what it is today in Mars as well? So that's my thought. But when you get into the whole extraterrestrial topic and you start looking at beings that have been talked about for forever on Earth in history, and then and I'm talking about the reptilians, and you hear stories today even of them being spotted, and then you look at even scripture that talked about reptilian beings being evil. It is for those of us that work in this research, it is said that there are reptilians out there that were created, so they came to be so long ago that they feel that they have a right to Earth. Okay, they've been here. There's stories that they may have originated here, but other stories that they came from other areas of the universe. But it is said that they feel like they own Earth and they want it. And that is very interesting. And they are, prepared to do whatever they can, maybe to control it. But with that said, and I've had hosts of shows not liking to hear this, I also believe that we are being protected, thus the battle. Because we are a young race of beings, who we're not advanced technologically, even though we think we are, we're not. Okay, we can't compete with what's going on out there. It is thought and believed that we're being protected by benevolent extraterrestrials that are out there in the universe and, preventing a takeover of Earth. Now, what's really interesting is that in my book, I talk, there's a chapter, Extraterrestrials in the Ancient Past, and I talk about some of the warring that was going on with humanity and and the Romans and the Greeks and all of those guys who were battling back then. We have stories of UFOs interfering in those battles, trying to break us up. At one point a UFO came down right between the armies and kind of stood there, and they're like shocked and they're moving away. We have those kind of stories in my book, and from the past, they're out there. We have had help even when it came to battling ourselves. And of course, religion, turned that into God sending signs and all of this stuff. But that's really, if you read the accounts, they called them flying shields, a disc-shaped UFO. That's what they were, disc UFOs, and they could identify with the term shields, right? And what a shield is like. But anyway, there was this one account where I can't remember now if it was Greece or Rome or where this was, but there were these priests preparing for a special holiday, and they could hear some kind of rumbling going on in the skies, and the building they were in started shaking, and the wind, the doors flew open from all the rattling, and people were running out, and they said that they saw what looked like at that time a disc in the skies battling. They called it battling. They said they were, what they described essentially were lasers being shot. And
Okay.
oh yeah. I mean, we have the account because even though they didn't have newspapers at the time, they were using wood to carve in the what they were seeing. They wrote it down. This was their form of newspaper in a carving. It was a kind of a woodcut. I'm forgetting the word. A woodcut carving, and they had the pictures of what they were seeing. But then there was one account, that same account, where it said somebody heard the gods are leaving. And I thought they heard this in the sky, and it just sounded like an extraterrestrial told them that whoever it was that was coming near Earth and humanity, and this was thousands of people that saw it and heard it, said the gods are leaving. And there was a time that extraterrestrials walked among us and people thought they were gods. And it almost sounded, Margie, like sarcasm. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, like ordering them.
The gods are leaving. And they wrote this down. Back then in ancient history, they took their history very seriously and recording what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these accounts, and people aren't aware of it with thus the book. Now and you can go in there and you can see I have the listings of the list. When you're reading the account, the book, you can go and find it even on Amazon, some of these accounts. And that's something. So someone's out there, I believe, the battle for Earth. There is someone protecting us. And yes, there are those that would like to take over. It doesn't have to just be the reptilians, but I believe there is a battle for Earth going on somewhere. And it doesn't have to be with atomic weaponry either. It could be a whole other level of technology or even politics that are going on out there in what I call galactic hierarchies.
That could explain some of the laser-like beams that are super, super bright that people have been seeing for a number of years, at least since 2012 in the Kansas City area, where they just see these either white or red, that look like laser beams shooting across the sky, mostly horizontal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That could explain it. What do you think about the possibility that there are underground UFO bases all over underwater, all over the planet?
So I do believe they're there. And, they've been there for a very long time. And I have two kind of scenarios going on here, and I'll try to tie this in quickly as I can. So in my book, I have a story by an anonymous person who came forward and wrote on one of the social media networks about her experience. And, I couldn't corroborate this thing, but it was just too interesting to not incorporate because of what I was writing at the time. So basically, this lady said that she wanted the world to know that there were beings in our ocean. And I'm going to go somewhere. I'm connecting the ocean with the underground tunnels in our ocean. And that, so she, so they had found these whales beached, and they had laser cut holes in them. And it looked like someone was eating whale meat. So I believe, and she said they, looked at the ocean, they brought in special equipment, and they found what looked like humanoid beings, but it was, it's supposed to be quiet, even though they're trying to keep it quiet, even though people are reporting seeing things all the time. But it was interesting for me because there was a man who, a story I have in there, who had an experience of going on a UFO and went underneath the ocean, and then went into a cavern within that reached from the ocean into the inner earth, and then went below and visited. So I'm forgetting. Oh, you said UFO bases. Did you say underwater or in the hollow?
Yeah, underwater. But I also was going to ask you about the inner earth. So,
okay. So let me just get back. So I got a little confused. But so when this lady saw these beings in the ocean. She said they did not swim like we do. They did not swim like fish. They moved very quickly, very sharply, and very differently. And they were attired in a kind of a suit, and they had a weapon, and they had sent a submersible down to investigate, and that these beings fired on the submersible. Now, who's
Ooh.
going to believe such a story, right? Well, the Russians have declassified a lot of their UFO and USO information, right? And a very famous story out there is that they had training going on for the Russian Navy, and I think it was 7 people who went down, and they were doing their training, and they came across extraterrestrials. And they came out of those waters and pretty quickly, and they went and told their superior officer, and he said, go back and try to catch them. Long story short, they tried to, they were killed. 2 of them were killed in the process of they were thrown out of the waters, and they were killed 2 were killed and the others were injured. Now that's in a declassified document, and it's so very, very similar to what this woman was reporting, that even though I couldn't, speak with her, I just thought it's just too interesting. If you read the account, it's very detailed, and then you have that Russian connection. But then, Margie, here's another thing. Ancient history tells us another very famous story out there. I put in famous accounts in these books so people could quickly look them up and, do their own research. So this story involves the Nommo extraterrestrials named the Nommo, Nommo, who visited the Doggin, who gave us information on the Sirius planets, who told us that, there was a second Sirius planet. They gave us information on the solar system, even though they they existed in ancient times. That's when they got the information, because they said that the Nommo extraterrestrials had landed. They saw them come out of the ship. They described the ship and taught them this information. Now, what was interesting about the Nommo was that they were aquatic beings. These beings could live on land, or they could live in the ocean. And even though they said they arrived, I don't remember hearing anything about them ever leaving. And I just wonder, are the Nomos still here? Is that the Nommo that this woman saw, and that, that the Russians saw? Now, with that said, the bases that we have under the ocean that are extraterrestrial have been around a long time. Even Christopher Columbus talked about seeing UFOs going into the ocean. There have been people today standing on beaches, looking at lights going, something big under the water, and people on ships and things. If you look in my book, I give locations all around the world, including here in the United States, where people have seen UFOs going into the oceans. They're not going in there for no reason. All right. There is something down there, and they apparently have perhaps bases or cities down there. Now, why would they be down there? Because we have not discovered what's down there. We haven't explored our oceans. We've explored more of the moon, which is less than 1% of the moon, than we have our oceans. And if you've got beings that are from an aquatic planet, or that want to study humanity, or that needed somewhere to escape to because the sun is exploding, then they could hide in our oceans just to avoid us, because they know we can't get down there yet to disturb them.
No, not too far down, most certainly. And even equipment fails, as we saw recently, and a bunch of people unfortunately died in that accident.
Right.
You mentioned the inner Earth briefly. Do you believe that there are extraterrestrials living inside the Earth?
So,
In the inner Earth?
Yeah, I do. I think they've been there for quite a while, and there may be 2 things going on. We may have extraterrestrials that live there, and we may have intraterrestrials living there. The intraterrestrials would be kind of extraterrestrial in the sense that these would be beings that have been there all along while we were while we were growing on the planet, on the surface. There may have been humans evolving down there. Maybe they went in during one of the worldwide catastrophes. We have got caverns and throughout the earth, and openings leading down into these deep, vast caverns from just all over the place. And the scientists have found more water within the earth than we have on the earth's surface. And where
Really?
there's water, there's life, right? They have found caverns and plains. I talk about it in my book of mountains beneath us. So we have people that have said they have visited inner earth and that they came upon beings that exist there. In one story, the beings told them, this one person, that they escaped to earth during the time of a disaster, and they said a flood, and their ancestors went all the way back to that time. But when they got down there, they found technology that had been abandoned. Okay, yeah, they took over. That's what this one person said. But then we have the most recent account of Admiral, not recent, but prominent account, Admiral Richard Byrd, which many people know who that was,
Yes.
who was taken into inner earth. And he saw cities down there, and he was a decorated officer. I don't know that they were extraterrestrial or intraterrestrial or where they came from, but they exist. And they said they've been there. And what's really interesting about this too is that our hollow earth, the idea of a hollow earth is not new in the galaxy. Okay, so just in our Earth's vicinity, we have what we believe is a hollow moon where beings live. And a couple of Mars's moons are believed to be the two Mars's moons are believed to be hollow. And there may be someone living inside those. We don't know about Mars, but we do have a decorated Israeli officer who said that he came forward and said, basically, we're not supposed to know, but there are people working on the moon, and they are working, humanity, and they are working alongside extraterrestrials. And I got the impression, I can't remember now why, that they were working inside the moon. Mars, Mars.
Oh,
so
Mars.
the idea, okay. Right, the idea, my point is the idea of hollowed out planets is not new. The fact that Earth may be hollow and have all these caverns, we're not alone. And someone said that we're kind of living inside out, that if you want to avoid radiation and, meteors and all of these disasters on the surface, then you want to be inside. I found that interesting. So, yeah, I believe that they're there. And also some of the strange creatures, I've never been a cryptid person, but recently I've become very interested because there are video footage of strange beings. Now, either they're being brought in or they were here all the time, and they may be coming from inside the earth.
I know that is one theory, or perhaps that they're interdimensional beings, which is kind of, I lean to that's got to be one of the answers. They're either from inside the earth or interdimensional, or both, maybe, perhaps. I know about Admiral Byrd's expeditions, and then they quieted him down about it, told him not to discuss it any further.
Right.
But he did tell enough people and there are enough records to know what he said.
Yeah, they loved him. He was a decorated officer. He was well respected. And if you can't believe someone that the military decorated and respected, who are we supposed to believe?
And put him in charge of major expeditions all over the world.
Right.
Right. No, he wasn't a lunatic if he was doing all that. Most definitely. It makes you wonder about what a lot of these officers have seen in battle, or when they're out at war, like General Patton, people like that, what they've seen and just never told anybody about, or were told to keep quiet about. It's really something else. What do you think it is in our future then with the ETs on our planet, above our planet. I know you mentioned that something big is coming. I also feel the same way. I think things are leaning towards the ETs making themselves known all at the same time, uh, shortly, because I
Mhm.
keep seeing that. And like, for instance, when I do readings for people,
Mhm.
one of the messages that comes in is that person is here to help people deal with what's coming. And so, perhaps I'm feeling like you're one of those people as well that's helping people deal with it and getting this information out. And like you mentioned earlier, there are a few things that you cover that have been covered before, but people miss things all the time. And it's a good idea to have it out in multiple formats so that people are able to get that information, because they might not read one book and they'll pick up another one.
Yeah.
Most certainly. The you mentioned the moon earlier, and we just have a few more questions, a few more minutes here. But do you think that the moon is hollow and populated by ETs and humans?
I think the moon is hollow, and that is something that we discovered, you know, back when in the 60s and the 70s. We really did know, because the scientists from NASA actually came out and said so when they blasted the moon with the ascent stage from from the
Mhm.
lunar module, and the moon reverberated. They
Yeah.
said, that can only, that shouldn't be, because that would mean the moon is hollow. And then you had two scientists out of Russia who came forward and said, from everything they learned from NASA, it looks like our moon is hollow. And then they gave their reasons. And then, of course, we have structures that were found on the moon by researchers, in the 70s, and they wrote books about them. And then we're still finding structures, and we're seeing lights on the moon. Some astronomers are saying that it looks like a parking lot up there, and some of the craters that it looks like there are ships lined up on craters, just as one of the astronauts said, when they went up, there were ships on, lined up on the craters. And we have more video coming out of what looks like UFOs around the moon, because of the technology. So
Mhm.
someone's there. And I wonder sometimes when you see pictures and images, videos of UFOs leaving the moon. Are they coming here? Where are they going? Are they coming to Earth? You know? So yeah, I believe they're up there. And in my moon book, I talk about signals that looks like, sometimes the people there, whoever's there may be trying to reach us. There could be two things going on up there. At one point there were a lot of lights flashing on the moon, and astronomers thought maybe that's a kind of thing, like a Morse code kind of thing, and they were trying to let us know they're there. And there were different geometric shapes showing up on the moon in the form of lights and things that may have been signs for us. And when astronauts have gone into space, they've heard strange languages. Have that in the book. And that in one case they recorded it and came back, and nobody could decipher or translate the language. So yeah, I believe they're there. I believe they would like to reach us. Obviously, they don't mean us any harm, and it could be a
Mhm.
possibility that humanity may be connected to these beings, because it is thought that the moon may have been placed here by advanced extraterrestrials, and that the moon may have been inhabited. In order to really understand that, people have to listen to the previous show, I guess, because that's a lot, a lot in a short period of time. And it's like, what do you
Yeah.
mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So I encourage everybody to go ahead and find that other show, and listen to that. Constance, how can people get a hold of your books?
Amazon, just like everything else, Amazon has all of them. But you can also go to Adventures Unlimited Press. If Amazon fails and they're sold out, and I hope they are, you can go to Adventures Unlimited Press. That's my publisher. They'll have it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the program with me again. I appreciate it. You're always a lot of fun and just filled with a lot of knowledge about these
Thank you.
things. I can't imagine the amount of time it takes to research, and look forward to
Thank you.
seeing your new books.
Thank you. That's why I have no other life, guys. That's why I had no other answer. My kids and my research and my writing. That's it for me.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you for having me, Margie.
okay. Thank you so much. And we'll have you on again soon.
Okay.
All right. Well, that is another wrap up for tonight, folks. Please go ahead and subscribe and like the program on YouTube so you don't miss a show. And I will see you here again next week.